If your business is spending on growth and not actually growing, this episode might hit a nerve. See, most firms underfund their areas that drive revenue, sales, marketing, and R&D, and then wonder why their results stall. In this conversation, financial strategist John Morris breaks down how to budget for real growth, use benchmarks to stop guessing, and make sure that every dollar you invest in delivers measurable impact. So if you want smarter planning, better decisions, and profit-fueled momentum, then this is the podcast that you've got to listen to. Hey, entrepreneurs, if you're working too hard for too little profit, well, welcome to Profit with a Plan podcast, where we help you scale smarter, increase profitability, and build a business that's worth more, whether you keep it or sell it. I'm Marcia, Riner, business growth strategist and profit booster behind Infinite Profit. I've helped countless entrepreneurs to turn their businesses into highly profitable and sale-ready assets, so they enjoy more income now and a bigger payday later. So join me for practical strategies, expert insights, and proven steps to make your business more profitable, more valuable, and built to last. By the way, today's episode is sponsored by Infinite Profit, where we don't just talk profit, we deliver it. All right, before we dive in, I've got something special for you. If you're tired of flat revenue or marketing that just doesn't pay off, my new Profit Booster Growth Map might be for you. In just a few minutes, it'll show you exactly how to bring in more qualified clients and plug those profit leaks that are eating away at your cash. Go get your growth map at profitbooster.biz and start turning missed revenue into real money. All right, now let's jump into today's episode. John Morris is the CEO of Fiscal Advocate and a leading voice in finance-first growth strategies for agencies and professional service firms. After scaling his last company from 10,000 to nearly 40 million, John saw firsthand how the right financial systems can transform a business. Today, he helps leaders move beyond guesswork by building clear, strategic budgeting frameworks that support smarter decisions, stronger cash flow, and meaningful investments in sales, marketing, and R&D. Through Fiscal Advocate, John and his team partner with growth-minded companies to align financial insights with real business impact, so every dollar invested has a purpose and a return. So he's here to show us how to what really it takes to grow a fund or fund a growth that meant to last. Hi, John. With my thumbs in my mouth, I got through everything. Welcome to Profit with a Plan podcast.
Marcia, thank you so much for having me here. Really excited to be here.
I love it. Love it. Okay. So I always like to start off and figure out why or how you got into this side of the business, because people don't wake up, and get out of high school, go into college and go, I'm going to be a financial analyst, right?
So, from 1996 to 2020, I was a digital marketer and an entrepreneur. So today, I am a fractional CFO and an entrepreneur.
Nice.
And so it's not like I graduated college and moved into the finance world. I happened into this because the secret to Rise's success, how I took it from 0 to 40 million, was how I made decisions and how I used financial data. And I really love connecting with other entrepreneurs. I really consider that's my kin, like that's my group. And if I could help them scale and grow and share wisdom, it energizes me. And so recognizing that this was my secret sauce, I'm now kind of looking to give that secret sauce to the world.
I love it. I love it. And you know what? I find that most really successful business owners rarely, I'm not kicking at the colleges here, but rarely did they have formal training in that lane. They often fell into it because hands-on, working day to day, problem solving, in the trenches kind of stuff gave them that grit that helped them really to thrive. So I love that this is a natural development for your business and that you want to share it with the world.
Excellent.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So in looking at growth, a lot of business owners, they get distracted, right? Shiny objects come in, they're
Yeah.
chasing squirrels, right? they're doing things that probably aren't moving the needle like they want them to. How do you help them see where that time, energy, and more importantly, the investment dollars have to be put?
So the first thing is, and I hopefully won't put your audience to sleep with this, but your income statement tells a story.
Mm. That's if
And
a business owner looks at their income statement well enough.
yeah, and you don't have to, you have to know how to read it. But, you know, I help people understand the story of their business, and you can very quickly identify what is important to somebody based on what they spend money on.
Mm.
And so, Rise grew at 75% on average every single year over that 16 years.
Wow.
And um, a lot of people who I built friendships with were in the agency world that owned much smaller agencies. And they would always ask me, like, what was your secret? How did you do it? Like they're looking for themselves to figure out how they can do it. And I'd always answer the question with a question. It's like, well, what percent of your revenue do you spend on sales and marketing?
Mm.
And the answer I always got, or 95% of the time I got, was, oh, I don't spend anything on sales and marketing. It's all word of mouth. It's all referral.
Isn't that terrible?
And I would have two typical responses to that. The first one is, so we spend a massive amount, like the highest percent of revenue we possibly can on sales and marketing is one of our strategies. And so what I'm telling you is the difference between me and them was that growth was really important to me. I wasn't wishing growth to happen, I was making growth happen.
Mm.
And, so yeah,
I think there's I want to say it's Dan Kennedy. I could be wrong, that said,
yeah,
the one who spends the most wins, right? Especially
yeah,
on marketing and sales, because that is something that you control. You're
yeah,
spending money to get in front of more of your ideal prospects rather than building a network and shaking hands with a potential
yeah.
partner, which is not a bad thing, but it's an extra thing. And the primary one is looking at how you get in front of your ideal customers in the most efficient, effective, and you know, cost effective kind of way, right?
Yep. And so, look, if it doesn't mean that you have to do it, but I'm just going to use, I know the professional service industry, like that's my sweet spot of expertise. And so if you own a marketing agency, a tech service agency, like these benchmarks will make sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
The average agency or professional service firm spends 8% of their revenue on sales and marketing. That's the average. So if you think about this, half spend more, half spend less.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the half spend less category, you're at a competitive disadvantage. Year after year after year, that compounds into your brand not being as well known as your competitors. And so I want you to have a competitive advantage. And so
Mm.
what you want to think about is if the average is 8%, how do I spend 16%?
Mm.
How do I have such a large advantage? And I'll get into how you can potentially fund this. But, same thing with R&D. I would say, I've now talked to well into the hundreds, maybe even into the thousands of marketing and tech service companies. And I would say 99.5% of them spend 0% on R&D or innovation. And I'm not talking about innovation with a capital I, like self-driving cars or the next thing to replace the iPad. I'm talking about innovation with a lowercase I, like automating your onboarding for clients, or automating your onboarding for employees, or offboarding, or what I mean, just like small things that
Small
you can get better at.
innovations that improve your operations or
Yeah.
your processes that you do. That's fantastic.
And so, I'll give you just two examples with Fiscal Advocate. We build a lot of technology. So we have a full budgeting and forecasting software system. I'm about to launch an AI CFO co-pilot. And I have five full-time people. My business has only been around for 5 years, dedicated to building out this technology. Like that's my R&D budget.
Nice.
I then have, on the sales and marketing side, like if someone goes to my LinkedIn content, they'll see that I post minimum every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Haven't missed a single week since August of last year because I have a firm that I'm allocating money to help me manage and build that content
Mm.
because growth is important to me. And the reason why I innovate is so that I can deliver a better experience and better results for my clients at the end of the year than I can at the beginning of the year. And so these are the metrics I want you to be thinking about is how do you get more money into those two metrics, your R&D budget and your sales and marketing budget, so that you keep your customers longer and you're able to win new customers.
I love this idea, but let me ask you a question. So
Yeah.
I think when when business owners look at that kind of investment, okay, if we're going to take that 8% median and say we're going to invest that into our sales and marketing, what kind of return on that investment are they really expecting? And, how do you get them to really believe that that investment will pay off?
Yeah. So there's two things. First is getting the money to actually invest in it. And the second thing is spending it intelligently, right? If
Yes.
if sales and marketing was easy, everyone would be putting more and more money into it. It's hard. Okay. And oftentimes your first ROI is to gather enough data to find out if something works.
Mm.
You know, I'm thinking about an event strategy and I'm going to go try these 4 events. And you go there and it turns out that, they were the wrong events completely. And you failed. So that doesn't mean that you stop. It means that you test the next thing
Mm.
until you find the thing that works. But I'll get into some metrics. So, you know, if you're investing in sales and marketing, you generally have two types of revenue. It's project-based revenue or what I call MRR, monthly recurring revenue on the service side of business.
Hmm.
And on the monthly recurring revenue side, I look at break-even analysis, meaning how much did it cost to acquire a customer and how many months do you have to keep that customer before you break even? If
Mm.
it takes longer than a year, meaning that you bought this customer and you're still losing money off of buying them after 12 months, your marketing is not efficient. If it's 6 months or less, you're in the sweet spot of where I want you to be. And if it's 3 months or less, you are best in class. Then my question is, how do you spend more? You
Yes.
know? On the
Yes.
flip side, I do a lot of benchmarking data with my clients, and I have clients that their sales and marketing is awful, and I'm looking into why is that the case? This is a real story. Client was spending, 400,000 on their marketing budget, and 240,000 of it was a chief marketing officer.
Mm.
And, I just said to them, I was like, you've hired way too senior of a person for the size of your budget. Like you need to have a $2 million budget to justify that hire. What you need is a marketing manager, that's probably 80 to 100,000 a year. And so
Yep.
when you start looking at it, it's pretty obvious. Once again, your income statement tells the story. If you structure it properly, of okay, well, it didn't take me long to figure out that this marketing budget was not well thought out in terms of its allocation.
And I think that's really important to not hire the senior level team right out of the
Yep.
get-go. Your hiring should be the worker bees first, right? The people that are actually doing the work and implementing rather than someone that's overseeing and strategizing. There's enough of us fractional people that you could
Yep.
hire at a lower price to do that kind of work. But I think that the scary part for business owners or the things that frustrate them the most when they invest in this kind of effort, right? If the initiative is marketing, there's always that 6 month window of them feeding money into the machine to learn that data for them to start to maybe break even or start to turn,
Yep.
some results coming through. And a lot of times business owners, they throw their hands up and say, I'm not going to do it, or they cut loose at
Or
5 months,
they
right?
cut bait too early. Yep.
Yeah. How do you keep them
It's
engaged?
it's hard.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be honest. Like this is what makes business hard is, you know, are you giving something enough runway to determine
Exactly.
if it's working?
Yeah.
And remember, I said the goal in oftentimes in marketing is to gather enough data to determine if something is effective.
Mm,
So let's just say you hired someone to do search engine optimization for you, which typically takes about 6 months before you start seeing results. And
exactly.
you're like, after 30 days, I don't see, hey, I'm Googling, all sorts of words and I don't see us anywhere. I'll tell you a real story because I owned a digital agency. We had a home improvement, like a home developer as a client. And we're about 4 to 5 weeks into the engagement. And he calls me up and he just starts yelling at me. And uh, and I'm big enough that I'm not involved in his project. Like I have no idea what's going on with this account. He's like, I'm Googling Chicago home development. I don't see us anywhere. What's going on? And swearing. I mean, went nuts. So, I'm like, calm down, let me get the team. I'll figure this out for like what's going on. So remember, we're only 4 to 6 weeks in to this search engine optimization engagement. And so I get the whole team, I have them on speakerphone, and you know, what it turns out is what we have done is developed the templates with all of the changes that we recommended for him to do to his website. We have delivered them to his marketing team internally, and they were in the process of reviewing them. So
So they
not a
hadn't even done anything.
so not a single thing
Ah,
had gone live yet.
oh my
And
gosh.
so you hear his voice change and like he changes his demeanor. And like I turned to him and I was like, the problem here was trust. I was like that, we haven't built the trust yet. I was like, what do I need to do to build that trust? So, the
Exactly.
trust isn't the part of this conversation. The point is he wasn't having a patience to let this run its course.
Mm,
And I think that that's a really important thing when you make an investment that, you know, I speak out of both sides of my mouth because I want crazy sense of urgency,
yes.
but I also don't want you to give up on an investment before it's time. Now, on the flip side, you got to know when it is enough time.
Right.
Like you can't let it keep on going and going and going.
Exactly.
Um,
But I
uh,
think oftentimes the businesses are running from a fearful place, right? So this guy was making an investment probably because he's, 6 months too late for making the investment,
yeah,
and so now he's under like some fire and he's needing, that
exactly. I need
investment to pay off.
customers. And
Yeah,
there's
so it's crazy. It's crazy what businesses
yeah.
go through. So marketing is one of those things that you have to do consistently forever, and it's not something you can let off. And I love the idea that, you got to understand when it's time to cut, when it's time to change, but it's never a time to quit. I think it's
Yeah,
something
in
that
my
has to be done all the time.
in my opinion, the budget needs to stay there and the tactics need to change. So you are
Good point.
just constantly optimizing.
Hey, quick pause here. If you've ever wondered what your next smartest move should be to grow your business, well, I've built something for you. It's called the Profit Booster Growth Map. It takes only about 2 minutes, it's totally free, and it shows you exactly where you're leaving money on the table and what to fix first. Go grab it for free at profitbooster.biz/growth map. Then come right back to the
Yeah.
episode.
And then when you find, I'm going to give you a good example of something I wish I could go back in time and do. Um, I sent out an email to 14 web development companies in San Francisco. We just did the digital media. We didn't do any web development at this moment in time.
Okay.
And the email is really simple. I'm coming to town for a conference. We don't do any web development. Some of our clients are constantly looking for web development companies, and maybe we could help you with the digital media. So as a partnership relationship, I got 11 meetings out of the 14. And I ended up getting Cisco as a client, the Sacramento Kings as a client, Bacardi as a client, like a bunch of logos off of that. What I should have done is hired a BDR, a business development rep, to immediately start sending me across the country, with a coming to town campaign and, or even just try to get on the phone where I don't have to fly to see them. But at that moment, I was single. I was happy to go fly anywhere in the world to go see things. Um, And but I missed an opportunity. It's like I identified a thing that was working and I didn't add fuel to the fire.
You
And
didn't, yeah. And I
and
think I think here's where a lot of businesses too, they get afraid. Oh my gosh, what if it works and I can't deliver, right?
yeah,
Because my infrastructure is not in place. I always like to say growth is that Christmas tree look, right? You grow
yeah,
up and then you scale out, and you grow up and you scale out. You can't scale before you grow, otherwise
yeah,
you're making a poor investment in that area. But yeah, fear again. Fear's a big fear and change are always those devils that sit on our
yeah.
shoulders as business owners and block us from the potential of growth that we should have.
And look,
So,
I would much rather have that problem of I have so much business that I don't know how to, build the infrastructure as
right.
opposed to I'm begging
I'm
people and
dying,
calling
right?
calling my SEO firm on day two of like what's going on because I need customers today instantly.
I need them yesterday.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Well, this is great, John, because you're giving us a lot of like reality on here and giving us the reasons why we should be investing. But when we look at investing, when we look at R&D opportunities, right? Those
Yeah.
are the micro changes you can do to improve your processes and the way you deliver experiences to your customers. You look at the marketing that's, gosh, needs to be done all the time. How do we invest in sales, right? What do we do in that space?
So very similar to marketing, I like to say first we need to invest in sales and marketing. So that 8% I talked about is combined. And typically I find it's a 50-50 split between sales and marketing. So I'm going to just start with your entire growth plan. What you want to do is pick a number that you're targeting for next year. Okay, let's just say you want to do $1 million in new business that's going to be recognized in that year, which means that you probably have to sell 2 million because you don't get to recognize all the revenue you sell in a 12-month period. And then what I want you to do is look at your average order value, and I want you to map out by month how many new clients you need to win.
Mm.
Then I want you to do a reality check and I want you to go look at how many clients are you currently winning. You know, um, I had a client, they ended up firing me because they didn't like the news I was giving them. Um,
Truth hurts sometimes.
yeah, they were an $11 million company that wanted to go to 12 million. And when I put their plan together, I told them that they're only going to do nine. And so uh, they fired the messenger on that. But the main reason was they had three seven-figure accounts and they lost
Ah,
all three of them. And they were winning two new customers a month. And their average order value was like $120,000. In order to get to 12 million, they would have to go from winning two clients a month to seven clients a month.
that's a huge jump.
And we were in January of the year. So the year started already. And they're like, well, we just hired a salesperson. And I was like, that's great, but that person's going to take 3 to 6 months just to get up to speed. So it's not like they're coming with a pipeline of an immediate opportunity. And every
Hmm.
month you lose makes it harder and harder for the year. So, um, so I like that reality check. Then what you have to figure out is, you know, how are you going to generate the leads from the marketing? And then what role do you want your salespeople to be? Like there are closers, there are hunters, there are sales operations people. And so you want to make sure you're investing in the sales, but you got to figure out what's your pain point. I'll give you Fiscal Advocate as an example. I happen to be, I think, a very good closer, when I get an opportunity. I have a fairly high win rate. I think I'm good at building trust, and the trust is real. But my problem right now is I'm doing about 80 different things. Doing a podcast interview with you. Right before this, I was talking to a client. I had two client meetings this morning. I don't have the time because of all the things I'm doing running this business to be
To be
out
the closer.
at an event. Actually, I have the capacity to do the closing. I don't have the capacity to
Mm.
do the hunting.
Ah, got it.
So what I need is someone who is literally playing golf 4 days a week with prospects, going to dinners at nighttime, flying to events and conferences and networking. And, they live out of a hotel room with a bag in hand. Uh, that to me is one type of salesperson. They're the relationship salesperson. I happen to have enough capacity, but at some point I won't have enough capacity where I'll need to hire a closer. And I'll need
Mm.
someone who can really develop the right strategy for the client, where the client's going to trust them that they're creating the right solution and that they can deliver on what they're promising. And so sales is, multiple facets in terms of what type of role you need to hire for.
I think that's across the board, though. That's a really accurate statement, but it is across the board when you're looking at your investment in marketing, your investment in
Yeah.
the R&D, your investment in your operations, right? You look at where the gaps are that are going to make the biggest headway, and you
Yeah.
look at what your capacity or the team's capacity is, and then that's where you start to fill the gaps rather than just in your earlier example of hiring the chief marketing, director.
Yeah.
You hire the person that can actually do the work that's having the gap that will make the biggest impact.
Yep.
And I think that's what a lot of people miss. They look for, someone to fill it all. And especially in today's AI space, they're trying to cut back and, hire one that can do everything rather than
Yeah.
three that are more specifically aligned for what they need to do.
And I generally recommend doing an inch wide and a mile deep in terms
That's
of your
good.
strategy. I'll just give you an example. You are my third podcast today.
Oh my goodness.
I do 5 a week.
Wow.
Um, and my thoughts behind it are that most of the people I talk to might have like a very good audience, but don't have a massive audience. It's not like I'm getting onto the front page of the Wall Street Journal, or on their podcast. But if you can aggregate multiple podcasts, you can get decent value.
Yes.
But my business is a small business. I don't have a massive media budget.
Mm.
So this is a strategy I deployed where I am using, one team member a fraction of their time to help me secure these meetings. It's one play that we're scaling, and now we're going to bring 2 or 3 other employees and we're going to start scheduling them. And so that's an example of I found something that works, and now we're going to scale it across the organization.
I love that. So is this something, this kind of strategy or um insights that we're talking about here? I'm hearing that there's a lot of nuances that are involved in it. Is this easy for a business owner to sit down and look at, or do they absolutely need guidance from someone like you?
So it all depends on obviously who's internal. I'd love to say yes, they have to go talk to me, but I'm going to give an honest answer. The first thing is you have to organize your income statement to be able to answer questions really quickly.
Mm.
So somebody has to be an expert at doing that.
To be
I,
able to read and analyze what they're reading, right?
yeah, so I'll just give an example. I want to be able to know what percent of your revenue do you spend on sales and marketing? How profitably are you servicing your customers? What percent of your revenue do you spend on your back office? What percent do you spend on your executive team? What percent is your profit relative to revenue? Like these are things that I want to instantaneously be able to answer.
Yes.
So you need somebody who knows how to organize all of your expenses and all of your revenue in a way that makes that very readable. The second thing is you then need to know, well, is that good or is that bad? Right?
What's the benchmark? Yep.
If I tell you that you're spending, 23% on your back office, so HR, legal, corporate IT, general admin, and finance, is that good or is that bad?
Depends.
It depends, but I can tell you, like in the professional service space, the benchmark is 15%.
That's that. Yeah.
So if you're spending 8% more, I'm going to challenge you on how does that help you grow faster versus if I got you down to, 10% and I gave you 5% more to sales and marketing. And so now once you know these numbers,
Mm.
there's not that many numbers, then you can start making really cool strategic decisions on how you live by those numbers.
So it is doable, but it's advisable that you get people that understand the information that they're talking about and where that lies. Is that good or bad, right?
I would
And
say that most of the times having a really good CFO or fractional CFO is going to make you more money than it's going to lose you.
right.
There are 2 elements. This is a real story. I was talking to a company yesterday. Companies in debt, they're losing money. Um, and they've been losing money all year long. But they had a massive cliff in their revenue in August, and their expenses have actually gone up since August. And I was talking to the person yesterday, and it's not an existing customer, it's a prospective customer. Um, and they share their financials, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, they need to cut $45,000 a month instantly.
Yikes.
And I was like,
That sounds
look,
like an Amazon cut, right?
yeah. But I mean, the reality is that like they're not going to survive if they don't do it. And so
Right.
having a financial steward. So there's two things I think that fractional CFOs do really well. The first thing is you need to be a financial steward. Okay. The financial steward is going to give you the insights. You need to cut $45,000 of your expenses. And oftentimes they'll just throw that report over and they just let it be. And then they'll be like, well, I did my job. I told them they got to make the cuts, and they'll go back to closing the books. The second thing, which I think is probably equally, if not more important, is sense of urgency. So my comment to the guy was, I want you to have these cuts done by Friday.
Wow.
And now I don't know if it's realistic to cut that much of based on his total expenses in 4 days. But what I was trying to do is be like, this is your number one priority. Like you need to clear your schedule. You need to do nothing but figure out who you're letting go, what other cuts you're going to do, how you're going to go assign people to clients to take care of them. But you don't have a healthy business right now. You have a not-for-profit. I want to turn you
So,
into a for-profit business.
yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah,
And you're not getting the tax deductions of the non-for-profits. So you
exactly.
better
Yep.
change something. In your expertise, would you have, or could you, once they engage you, help him know what to cut and where to look and how to
Absolutely.
shift? At the same
Yep.
time, raise the other side so the revenue goes up, so that you're not just cutting, you're working on a teeter-totter to make the whole thing
Yeah.
go up.
So in their scenario, it's a marketing agency. And all I know is that his payroll is not unbundled. It's one line item, and typically you want your payroll to be 55% of your total revenue
In a service company like
in
that,
a
yes.
service company. His was 85%.
Okay.
Okay, so I can tell you that he needs to cut his payroll, but you want to unbundle it. So you want to put everyone who does client work in the client work bucket, everyone who does the sales and marketing in the sales and marketing bucket.
Which
Then
is
I can
data
tell him,
management.
yeah,
It is 100% data
mhm,
management. And if you had the right person in the front end that was able to manage your data properly, you could see and then make those decisions, right? And I think that's
exactly.
what
Yep.
you're leading to, rather than just having it all bundled in payroll.
No, I feel very confident if he was to work with us, he would go from losing lots of money to probably making, 500 to $700,000 a year.
Wow.
I had a client last year that was losing $1.5 million. This year they're making $1.5 million.
Well, see, that's the value of having the right person in the right role.
Yeah,
And, you don't have to hire them as a key employee, as the CFO on deck, and pay them,
yeah.
180, $200,000 a year. You can hire a fractional that can work on a specific project for a period of time to adjust the money and make sure that the decisions and the data are giving you the right direction to go into. Is
Not
that, I
only
mean,
just to,
that's totally
not,
doable, right?
totally doable. Let me take a step further. I've looked at all my clients between 0 and 20 million in revenue, and only two of them, and I'm talking about, 40 to 50 clients have had a CFO, an internal CFO. And it was very similar to that CMO example I gave you, way overpaid. And the ones that had that CFO that were way overpaid were the ones where their financials were in the worst shape. When you hire, it's just too expensive, and they were just building too much infrastructure and they weren't adding any value. I
Mm.
find the ones between 0 and 20 really, when you find the right fractional CFO, that they're the ones who are being much better financial stewards. I would say
Mm.
after you get over 20 million, you can start hiring, well-functioning CFOs that are going beyond controller type duties and really acting as a CFO.
Right. Right. John, this has been brilliant. It really opened the eyes of the challenges that businesses are having because the business owner's got his head down. He's putting out fires, chasing customers, trying to make things work. But then if he just if they just take a breath, look back, look at the data and figure out where those changes might need to go, then they
Yeah.
could invest in the right direction to grow both sides, the revenue side as well as managing the costs, so that they're profitable, right? I mean, isn't
Yeah.
that the whole goal here?
I mean, and it's not just the profit, which is a huge part. It's the emotional component of being, like you can sleep at night when you're profitable. You're
Less
just
stress.
stressed all the time,
I love it.
when you're wondering how you're going to make payroll and wondering how you're going to pay the next vendor and all the things that go along with it.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for coming on and putting a bright, shiny light on this conversation, especially as we're in the new year and trying to get these
Yeah.
things off and going. I think this is super important. But John, where can listeners find out more about you and Fiscal Advocate so that they can get some help, maybe get some guidance and direction
Yep.
and more information?
I'll give you three different ways. So the first one is you can follow me on LinkedIn. I post minimum of 3 times a week. It's generally providing lots of value of ways to think about strategic planning and finance management. Second one is you can go to fiscaladvocate.com, and in our resource section, there's an ebook I wrote that talks about my approach to finance. There's several blog posts, and then we also put all podcasts that I do on there as well.
Nice.
And then the third one is send me an email. I would love to hear from you. jon@fiscaladvocate.com.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
And yes, I think it's so important to have some guidance in that space because that's really where you're going to be able to make those good decisions. And as a CEO of a company, that's your job, is to make those good decisions. Um, and as many of us are wearing 57
Yeah.
different hats, maybe you can take off a couple of those hats to someone that they can help and guide you in the right spot. So that's really cool. All right, listeners, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you picked up some valuable insight and actionable ideas that'll help you make your business more profitable. And I know that having this idea of where your data is and how you can make those decisions and where you can make those investments in sales and marketing and R&D to really flip the switch on your company and make this year a great one. So yeah, definitely go see John's stuff. All right, before
Excellent.
we go, if you're ready to bring in more of those right clients and keep more of the money you've earned, go grab the free Profit Booster Growth Map. It pinpoints 3 top moves that you can grow your revenue and stop your profit leaks fast. You can get it anytime at profitbooster.biz. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss future shows. You can always find Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast platforms. And we're looking forward to more great profitable strategies on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you.